Every club.
Every day.
The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Liverpool Podcast, brought to you by the Global Sports Podcast Network. We're now on YouTube, so as well as finding us on your preferred podcast platform, you can see our pretty faces on YouTube. So just go to the Global Sports Podcast Network YouTube page and you'll find all manner of daily Liverpool content there. Well, it's been another very good week for the Reds. Last night we brushed Spurs aside to reach the League Cup final again, a chance to retain that trophy that we won last year. And the Reds will be playing Newcastle in the final, which, I mean, it should be a cracking game. Newcastle they're just one of those teams that we seem to have this history of just really, really good games. 3-3 this season at St James. There's already been so many 4-3s in the past. So really looking forward to that game. And, you know, to be fair to Newcastle, I think they deserved that win over Arsenal. They played really well. And Alexander Isak, what a player, what a striker. I think even when he misses, he makes it look so good. I think it was Newcastle's first goal. Murphy, I think it was, who scored. I mean, he's having a terrific season as well. But that was after Isak hit the post with a really, fantastic left foot strike. Curls it around the goalkeeper. He takes it early. He always takes his shots early, which I really like about him. And he was really unlucky not to score, but the ball goes out and Murphy tucks it away. But he's a top striker. And I'm just wondering how long Newcastle can hold on to him for, because at some point, if he carries on performing like this, then, the big boys will come calling. And does that include us? Can you imagine Isak up there with the likes of Salah, with Diaz, Gakpo, Jota? I mean, dear me, what a lineup that would be. I think the only question mark over Isak is his fitness record. And when we've got the likes of, Diogo Jota, who is, he's a fantastic finisher, but there's that question mark over his fitness. Do we then spend, I don't know how much it's going to cost. I can't see it being less than £100 million to get Isak in when his injury record is not great either. But, we'll see. That's going to be a question for the summer. But on Thursday night, it was Gakpo who once again was the star of the show. And he really loves this competition, the Carabao Cup. I thought we absolutely schooled Spurs, and I have to say that I was surprised at how comfortable that game was. I thought Spurs, they've had a rotten season so far. Very, very unlucky with injuries, huge injury list, inconsistent form, Postecoglou under increased pressure. And I thought they will surely show up for this game and at least give Liverpool a run for their money, give them a fight, but nothing, absolutely nothing. And I have to say that I think that was a worrying performance if you're a Spurs fan. Just the lack of fight and intensity, I think really, really surprised me. And so, that's another competition that's not available now for Postecoglou to win. And, he did famously say at the start of the season that this is the season that he'll win something. He'll always win something in his second season. So that now leaves the FA Cup and it leaves the Europa League. By no means easy, but you'd have to say that if Tottenham were to go far in the Europa League or even win the Europa League, that's a European trophy. It's any trophy for Spurs, and it's Champions League football. But that seems like a long, long way off for Spurs after that performance on Thursday night. But as for Liverpool, I thought we were outstanding right throughout the team. I thought Kelleher had a routine game. Connor Bradley continues to impress. And quite frankly, with every game that he plays, I just feel more and more comfortable with the Trent contract situation, because we have absolutely no worries in that position. I thought he was outstanding, as was the rest of that back four. Andy Robertson, I thought, had another very, very good game. And, we should mention that, because it does feel like, from certain quarters, certain sections, that there's this almost glee to almost highlight his below par performances this season. And he has had those this season. But I don't think he gets enough praise for the games where he's done well. So really pleased to see Robbo playing to the level that we've come accustomed to over the seasons that he's been with us. Konate and Van Dijk, once again, absolute rocks in the centre of that defence. And Van Dijk, I mean, what can you say about this defender? He's just on a different level, I think, to everyone else. Scores a goal reminiscent of the one that he scored in the League Cup final last season against Chelsea. And he just never looked in any trouble. The way that he marshalled that back four, again, as he's done throughout the whole season. And I think that with Van Dijk, I think with every game that goes by, you just see how important he is to this team, and that from those three players that have these contract negotiations that are rumbling on, Mohamed Salah, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Van Dijk is the most important player for Liverpool Football Club. I just don't think there's any doubt in that. I know that Salah is phenomenal and the numbers that he's putting up is phenomenal, but I think that the drop-off for Liverpool, if Van Dijk leaves, I think is something that we would struggle to deal with, because I just don't see anyone out there, certainly not currently in our squad, that can come in and do what he does, not just on a defensive level, but his presence as captain and his stature, his aura is something that just can't be replicated by any other defender in this squad. And I think you'd be hard pressed to even buy that. So I thought that he was brilliant. The midfield was the main engine room again. Ryan Gravenberch, as he's done all season, just setting that tempo. Curtis Jones came in for Alexis McAllister, and I thought he did really well. I thought he played very well. It was good to see that his passing was a little more crisp than he normally does, and that's something that he is regularly criticised for, and that is holding on to the ball just that bit too long. But I thought against Spurs, he moved the ball quickly, and I don't know whether that was because Spurs, just weren't pressing and weren't intense enough in that press. But I thought he had a good game, and certainly his counter pressing I thought was really, really good. He won the ball back on a number of occasions, and I think one of the goals, maybe even the first goal, was as a result of Curtis Jones winning the ball back in midfield and supplying it to Salah, who then assists Cody Gakpo. And as for the other midfielder, Dominic Boslai, I mean, he's just getting better and better. He's turning into the complete midfielder. He's pressing, his energy, his positional discipline, the options that he offers to Gravenberch and to McAllister and to the other forward players. He's always available. He's contributing goals and assists now. And against Spurs, even at 90 minutes, we were in stoppage time. We were 4-0 up. The game is over. And yet he is he's busting a lung, pressing that Spurs back line when they were in possession. And I just thought, what a player, what an example to the younger members of that squad, showing them the kind of standards that you have to meet if you're going to get a look in this team. The forwards I thought were, again, very good. I thought actually Mohamed Salah, I thought, had one of his quieter games. But then he gets a goal and an assist, which I suppose constitutes a quiet game for Salah these days. And it was good to see him score the penalty in a really, what's the word I'm looking for? He put it away really comfortably. There has been this tendency for Salah sometimes to just put his head down and just hit the ball as hard as he can, which has meant that he's missed some penalties in the past. But I've noticed that after the penalty that he missed, I think it was against Real Madrid actually this season in the Champions League, he started to place the penalties more, keep his head up and place the penalty. And yesterday was one of those penalties. Sorry, Thursday night, I should say. It was one of those penalties where even if the goalkeeper goes the right way, he's not saving that. So, a routine performance for Salah, a goal and an assist. Gakpo, I thought, was excellent. As I said, he loves this competition. And, he's fast become a first choice on that left-hand side. And Diaz is the player that's rotated, often played centrally. Excellent performance. And similarly, an excellent performance by Darwin Núñez. And I think if ever there was a game that summed up the importance of Núñez to this team, I think it was against Spurs. His work rate, his desire to win the ball back and set up counter-attacks, his defensive work at set pieces, the amount of headed clearances that he made in that game, probably up there with Virgil van Dijk. So a really good performance from Núñez. Jota came on for a run out as well, helping him to find some match sharpness after that layoff. So the team is looking good. I think the squad is looking very healthy. Only Trent Alexander-Arnold is out injured, but by all accounts, it doesn't sound like a serious injury. It's not a hamstring. I think it was a tweak of the thigh muscle, and he may even be in contention for the Merseyside derby on Wednesday night. Although I would argue that I would play Conor Bradley. I would play Conor Bradley in that game, even if Trent was available. I just think that Conor Bradley, he seems to really enjoy the physical aspect of defending. He's always going in for these crunching tackles. And I think that Goodison on Wednesday night is going to be that kind of atmosphere where it's going to be blood and thunder. And I think even if Trent is fit, I think Slot will probably play Conor Bradley, and I think that would be the right move. So he's really the only question mark in terms of fitness. Joe Gomez is back in training, so he'll be available soon to swell those defensive ranks as well. And I think that is a huge bonus for us this season. And it's something that we have suffered in previous seasons, even last season when we were again fighting on all four fronts. And I remember Mohamed Salah coming back from the African Cup and he was injured, came back too soon, got injured again. And, we just have had injuries that just hampered that momentum last season. And I think the fact that we've got a fit and healthy squad as we approach the business end of the season can only be a positive for us, and probably the single biggest factor in us winning some major silverware this season. Arsenal at the moment are probably our only realistic threat in the Premier League, and it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to being knocked out by Newcastle in the Carabao Cup midweek. I mean, apart from the performance, because I thought that Newcastle deserved that game, and I think that they outfought Arsenal as well. But it's another trophy that passes them by. And I suppose you can look at it two ways. Certainly Arsenal will try to look at it in that way. Is it a positive that they can now focus on the Premier League and the Champions League? Or does it ramp up the pressure? Because the big two competitions are now the only ones that they can win. So I think it will be interesting to see how they react to this defeat, because they've got a big month of fixtures coming up in February, and the league title could be won or lost this season, looking at the fixtures. But here at Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner with a 4K video recording from our phone and AI editing that automatically removes ums, ahs, and 22 other speech patterns. Zencastr makes it super easy to start a podcast that sounds great. So if you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description to learn more about Zencastr. Okay, the Bournemouth win a week ago, it seems like a long time ago now, but that was such a big win, and it's this kind of momentum that is really, I think, carrying this team. I think if we were to have dropped points against Bournemouth, I think the whole scenario around the Premier League title race and the season itself is completely different. Arsenal would close the gap, and they'd close the gap with a resounding win over Manchester City. And I know that this is not the Man City that we've come to, certainly not love, but come to expect. But it's still Manchester City, and Manchester City have had a hold over Arsenal. So for Arsenal to have beaten them, and to really convincingly beaten them and close the gap to within 4 points or 3 points, depending on how many points we could have dropped at Bournemouth, I think that win was just really crucial for us in terms of giving us that breathing space. And we are coming up to what will be, as I've mentioned, a critical phase of the season in this Premier League title race. And next Wednesday is the Merseyside derby at Goodison Park. I mean, what a game that promises to be. And this is the game in hand. This is what we've had in our back pocket for what feels like half a season. But it's now crunch time. There will be no more games in hand after this. So we have to go to Goodison Park, and we have to go and win this game. Win it, and I think it may just deliver a knockout blow to Arsenal. I really do, because as well as giving us a 9-point lead at this stage of the season, I think the body blow that would be to Arsenal, I think it would be maybe too much for them to recover from, because before that game in hand takes place on Wednesday, Arsenal have always had the opportunity to get within 3 points of us. And that would be 3 points with a game in hand. And even with a game in hand, 3 points is 3 points. I think it would give the chasing team a huge lift and confidence that this title race is on and it's doable. But I think once you get to 9 points, I think then it could start to eat away Arsenal's confidence, because then there is absolutely no margin for error. They would have to win probably every single game, and every dropped point after that would just be, another blow to their confidence, another blow to their title hopes. So a big, big week coming up. But before then, we've got the FA Cup fourth round tie away at Plymouth Argyle. Plymouth are bottom of the championship table, so they're not in a good place. But they have just changed managers and had a big win against West Brom last weekend. So they will have a bit of a spring in their step for this game after that win, and also that kind of new manager bounce. And you can never really predict how these cup games are going to turn out. The crowd, the conditions will play a huge part. And maybe if the home team can stay in the game for 30 minutes or take it up to half time, I think it could become an uncomfortable afternoon for Liverpool. But you have to say, obviously, we will go in as favourites. We should win this game, whatever team we put out. And that is the big question here. It's an FA Cup game. We want to win it. We're in all competitions. But surely that midweek game against Everton is the priority. And I'm just thinking that Slot may well play a side similar to the one that he put out against PSV in that final Champions League game. Now, the pitch at Argyle is not going to be the kind of carpet-like turf the players are used to playing at Anfield and other Premier League grounds. So that could always increase the risk of injury. And I hope that Slot really rings the changes for this game. And we've got the depth to do that. So I hope and I expect to see Kelleher playing goal, and maybe a back four of Connor Bradley, Kwanzaa, Gomez if he is fit. I think if he's fit, injury-free, he's obviously not going to be match fit, but I think if he's injury-free, I think he should play Gomez and Kwanzaa with Tsimikas at left back, and maybe take off Gomez after 60 minutes. Midfield, I'd go for Endo. I'd give Tyler Morton a run out, and Harvey Elliott also. The guy needs minutes, and I think he'd be good for these cup games. And up front, I think that's where we are, strongest in terms of our quality and our depth. So Chiesa has been getting minutes recently. I would hope and expect him to play on that right-hand side in place of Mohamed Salah, who should sit this one out. And I'd still go for Darwin Núñez and maybe take him off after about 60 minutes and give Jota another run out for half an hour, and probably Luis Diaz, given that Gakpo played on Thursday night. In terms of a score prediction, again, a tricky one. I can't look past a Liverpool win. Anything else would be a real upset. So I'm predicting a 4-0 win for Liverpool in this game. And let's hope that materialises. Now, this podcast is part of the Global Sports Podcast Network, the only network bringing you exclusive daily news and views on your Premier League team, the Premier League and women's football. It's a unique listening experience that puts fans first, bringing you the very latest breaking news from your team. So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and make us your first listen every day. Global Sports Podcast Network, every club, every day. Okay, that is all for today. Give us a follow on your preferred podcast platform so that you get the very latest content when it drops. We are now on YouTube, so check us out on the Global Sports Podcast Network YouTube page. Follow us on social media at GSPN Liverpool. You can email us at gspndailyliverpool gmail.com. Join us again on Monday as we review the FA Cup game against Plymouth. Until next time, thank you for listening.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.